Welcome back to the channel. If you recently purchased an Insta360 Ace Pro 2, you may be looking for a good resource on what settings you should use in order to get the best in-camera results with minimal editing. That way you can take your footage straight from your dive directly to Insta360's app, where your videos can be easily and quickly shared with your friends, your family, posting your social media, whatever it is that you're into. Different conditions and different use cases may require specific settings. So in this video, what we're going to cover is how to set up multiple presets that have different settings pre-programmed into them. That way you can decide while you're underwater how you want to document this experience based on what exactly it is that you're trying to shoot. This is a best settings video, so I'm sure you're in a hurry for me to get to the point. If that's the case, jump to this timestamp that I've posted below. Otherwise, if you have a few minutes, let's look at some of this example footage that I shot with the Ace Pro 2 after the last firmware update. A recent update for the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 offers, amongst other features, compatibility with a new feature called Aquavision 3.0. This new feature will apply AI-generated color correction and will be completely optional, as it will be accessed in the editing process through Insta360's app. This update occurred sometime around the time that is making this video, and since we're discussing best settings, I thought that it would be necessary to show you some example footage of this new feature, as you may want to consider using it, but I'll let you decide. This feature uses AI to analyze how it will adjust the color correction of your footage based on the conditions that you were shooting in. After it's done analyzing, you'll have 4 different options to choose from, and then you can use a slider down here at the bottom of the screen to adjust the intensity of which it will apply this effect to your footage. Of course, if you don't like the results, you can reanalyze your footage at any time, or simply just toggle off the feature. Aside from Aquavision 3.0, another feature that I definitely recommend utilizing if you're looking to get the best results out of your footage is enabling flow state stabilization in Insta360's app. I'll typically set mine to Horizon Lock. Now we're ready to jump into the settings. The first thing that we need to do before creating our first preset is making sure that we have the proper settings selected on the main menu. This way we can ensure that our footage is of the highest quality regardless of the preset that we'll be choosing to shoot in. Let's do this by swiping down from the top of the screen, swipe again to the right, but then drill into the gear icon at the bottom right hand corner of the menu. Scroll down to where it says Image Settings, and at the bottom of that menu, you'll see where it says bitrate. Let's ensure that bitrate is always set to high. Although shooting in a high bitrate can increase the file size, thus using up space on your SD card a little bit more quickly, when we're shooting underwater, using a high bitrate is necessary because that means that we're going to have more data in the file. This allows us to push that file a little bit harder when it comes to fixing our color correction, which is one of the most important things to consider when trying to get good results when shooting underwater. The next thing that we want to do while we're in the main menu is go into the General tab and enable Clarity Zoom. While shooting in 4K, this will enable us to zoom into our image 2 times and still maintain a resolution of 4K. This is done using our 8K sensor that's present on this camera. If you like, you could go to the menu where it says Customize Power Button, then you can program the power button to be the method used to activate this feature while recording. Now that we have the basic settings selected on the main menu, let's jump into creating our first preset. We'll make this first preset 4K 60, which I would imagine would be the go-to setting for most of you watching, as this will have the ability to slow your footage down by 50% to get a nice cinematic slow motion appearance. With that said, it's not such a high frame rate that you would be sacrificing any sort of quality if you were to go back and play this footage at a normal speed. The first thing that we're going to do to create our first preset is swipe from the middle of the screen. This is a sort of hidden menu because if we swipe from the far left or the far right, we will then access different menus that we can discuss later. Now by swiping from the middle of the screen, you will land on the Mode Preset menu. In this case, we're going to go ahead and select Preset, and then on the next page, hit the plus sign. Now we will want to name the preset that we're about to create, so I'm going to go ahead and choose Diving. It then brings us to this next page where we will select Edit. For this preset, let's go ahead and make sure that mode is selected as Video, and then we will scroll down and open up the Specifications tab. This tab will be where we choose our resolution and our frame rate, and as we discussed earlier, we're going to go ahead and choose 4K 60. And now we're going to go through these additional options that you'll see on the left side of the page. I found that I really enjoyed the results that I get when I enable Active HDR, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that feature, as this will give us great dynamic range. I'm going to go ahead and keep my stabilization on standard, but if you find yourself in a rough environment that involves a lot of shaking, feel free to set that to high. However, this will make your image appear slightly more narrow. For ratio, or also known as aspect ratio, I'm going to choose 16:9. And I'll be keeping my duration set on infinite. Now that we've done this, hit the back arrow, which is going to bring us to the previous menu, because now we're going to go into the Shooting Parameters tab. On the top of the screen, we will see Auto or N for Manual. We will go into Auto since our camera will be inside of the housing, and such features as white balance, shutter speed, ISO will all need to be on Auto, as we won't be able to access these menus while we're on our dive. And right down below Auto, we'll set our color profile to standard. I'm going to set my EV balance to -0.7. These action cameras, when running on automatic settings, will typically overexpose our image, and setting the EV balance this way is a good way to compensate for this. And since we will be shooting underwater, you'll most likely want your camera to be metering for the scene as opposed to an individual's face. And because of this, we're going to switch our metering mode setting from face priority to matrix. And let's not forget about sharpness. I like to keep that on medium, especially if you don't plan on doing a lot of post-processing. And in this case, since we're not doing a whole lot of post-processing, we're going to keep iLog turned off. We're going to need to keep our white balance in auto. Remember, we won't be able to access this setting while we're on our dive, and your white balance will change drastically based on your depth. Auto is the only way to go, as these action cameras don't have a way to set a custom white balance like we would on a professional camera rig. Tap the screen to back out of the Shooting Parameters tab, and let's go ahead and keep FOV, or Field of View, set as ultra wide. It's important to mention that we're not going to worry too much about Field of View, because when we go underwater, we're going to activate a feature called Underwater Mode. The reason why we do this is because Underwater Mode helps correct all of those things that present themselves as challenges when you're filming underwater, like color, distortion, refraction. When you enable Underwater Mode, it automatically defaults your lens option to Ultra, regardless of what your preset has programmed into it. This is done intentionally to help reduce distortion in your final image, which is why we're not too worried about what your lens option is going to be set to. And now that we've done all of this, just go ahead and save your preset. After returning to the main screen, short press the power button. You'll notice that only video shows up and the preset that we saved does not appear. In order to get it to appear, short press the power button again and press the 3 dots on the top right hand side. And add it as your first preset to the quick switch menu. This enables it to show up on our preset options that we can then select from while on our dive, simply by pressing the power button to access the list of presets. Now it's time to add our second preset. I would suggest to make one for AK30, and you could do this by swiping from the middle of the screen again. Now we will hit the plus sign, select the preset name, and then hit edit. This allows us to create this and other presets by following the steps that we just went through. As I mentioned, AK30 could be a good place to start. Then I would set another one up for 4K 120 or any other group of settings that you feel like you'll need. You may have noticed that when setting up these presets, based on the frame rate or resolution that you chose, certain features may not be available. For example, when shooting in 8K or when shooting at a high frame rate like 4K 120, features like clarity zoom or active HDR may not be an option. You may also want to have an additional preset created with Insta360's low light feature, Pure Video. In order to do this, we will again swipe from the middle of the screen, hit the plus icon, name the preset, then we will go to edit. Now that we're in the edit menu, we're going to go down to where it says shooting mode and then select pure video. We will then open up the specifications tab and select 4K as a resolution and 30 frames per second as our frame rate. Because with a lower frame rate, the automatic exposure will favor a slower shutter speed. Now we're going to open up the menu that says shooting parameters. Let's keep the color profile on standard, but for white balance, I like to set it to manual, as I will have it to match the color temperature of my primary diving light. In this case, it's 5600 Kelvin. And if you're shooting under dim, natural light, where your dive light isn't your primary source of light, maybe around dusk or dawn, then you may just want to keep your white balance on auto. Just like in your other settings, let's make sure that your EB balance is also set to negative 0.7, because when shooting in these darker environments, you may encounter dive lights or other sorts of light sources that may come out a bit too hot in your image. The last thing we'll want to do is short press the power button and go to the 3 dots on the top right hand part of the screen, and then just like before, we'll add it to our quick switch menu. I feel like action cameras have always struggled in low light, and pure video is a great feature that really helps this camera stand apart from others on the market, like you can see here in this comparison footage between the GoPro Hero 13 and the Ace Pro 2, as it has pure video engaged. And I think that just about brings us to a pretty good place to wrap this video up. Thanks again for watching. I tried my best to make this video as straightforward as possible, so I hope that it not only answered any of your questions, but you found it useful. This video is sponsored by Insta360, and I do have an affiliate link posted in the video description, so if you want to support this channel and you have plans on picking up one of these cameras or any other camera in Insta360's lineup, doing so through that link will help me out quite a bit. And if more example footage is what you want to see from the Ace Pro 2, I'm going to wrap this one up with a short video that I created from a recent trip. I can't wait to see you on the next dive. Thanks for watching.